今天我们的记者接到了六村堡村民打来的热线电话，说他们在打井打到地下近100米的时候，挖到了一个奇怪的植物。
现在呢，我们就来到了位于六村堡的东鹤村，在我身后这里是聚集了有很多的村民，他们告诉我们说呢，前天下午他们在村子里面打井的时候呢，是发现了一个摸上去肉乎乎又像植物的东西。那么就连村子上了年纪的80多岁的老大爷也告诉我们说，他们也是从来没有见过类似于这样的东西。那么现在呢，我们就一起去上前看一看，到底这个东西究竟是什么。
朋友就帮忙这捞蹦子，大约有80米，捞出来一个这肉乎乎的，不知道这啥，有鼻子有眼。
我们现在通过镜头呢，可以看到这个东西长得非常像一个菌类。那这个两边呢都是有这个蘑菇头的形状，上面呢是有一个我们可以看到像嘴巴的东西，而下方呢则是一个小孔，是直接通透的。摸上去是非常的光滑，感觉非常像一个肉类。那我们用尺子呢也大概量了一下，这个东西的身长呢也大概就在19公分左右。
刚才来的比年龄大的有80多岁的，从来都没见过这。上网查了后，这叫太岁嘛。
何先生告诉我们说，他在网上呢是查看了相关的信息，发现太岁这个东西呢，在民间呢是俗称肉灵芝，而我们呢也是在网上呢也是查阅了相关的信息，发现这个肉灵芝呢之前在我国的多个城市呢是已经被发现过，而同时呢这个东西呢比较适合在我们陕西的秦岭山脉是成长的，由于它这个生长的环境特殊，一般呢都是深埋在底下，那么很难呢被人们发现的。而同时呢我们了解到这个肉灵芝呢在网上呢也是有很多的说法，有人传说秦始皇当时要寻找这个长生不老的药，发现这个肉灵芝呢就是这个药材的其中之一。还有人说李时珍在《本草纲目》记载药类当中这个肉灵芝呢也是其中的之一。贺先生表示呢，今天是周末，他先暂时的将这个摸上去肉乎乎又像植物东西搁置到家里，明天呢会和我们的记者一起去寻找这个植物学家，来对这个东西呢做出一个科学的鉴定。那么也希望大家能够在明天的同一时间继续收看我们的西安零距离。零距离记者端清燕凤。
Carl, more than 100 days have passed since the first in the nation Iowa caucuses. At first, we had Mitt Romney declared the winner there, then Rick Santorum. They're not finalized yet, but there could be another winner.
And it could very possibly be Ron Paul who gets the lion's share of the delegates. Over the course of the last weekend, the Iowa Republican Party held an election for members of its Central Committee, and Ron Paul delegates, Ron Paul supporters, made big gains. And so when Iowa's convention comes up in June and the actual delegates are allocated, it's entirely possible Ron Paul could come out on top.
Well, now it's on to Florida for the next Republican primary, and that's where the Tea Party has been strong. You know, it helped send Rick Scott to the governor's mansion and Marco Rubio to the Senate. Can it also help Newt Gingrich beat Mitt Romney again? Or will Tea Party support be split between Newt, Rick Santorum, and Ron Paul? Well, joining us now from South Carolina is South Carolina Tea Party leader, Republican State Senator Tom Davis, who supported Ron Paul. Senator Davis, welcome. First, what is the message, do you think, of Newt Gingrich's win, and what do you predict will happen in Florida?
Well, actually, it was a very good night for Newt Gingrich yesterday, or a very good day for Newt Gingrich yesterday. You can't deny that. And I could kind of feel it moving that way in South Carolina after the debates on Monday and on Thursday nights. He's such an extremely good debater, very sharp guy, very bright, very forceful, and I think that struck a chord with the people of South Carolina. But I think one of the larger lessons coming out of South Carolina, quite frankly, Eric, is the growth of Ron Paul's movement. I mean, I think people are missing that message. Back in 2008, he only got 3.7% of the vote in the Republican primary, about 15,000 votes. Yesterday, Dr. Paul got 13% of the vote and 77,000 votes. So you're seeing a 3.5-fold increase in the percentage that Ron Paul got of the vote, and a 55,000 vote increase, more than 5 times what he got 4 years ago. Ron Paul is growing a movement. He's teaching people. He's educating people. You've seen it happen in Iowa, growing the numbers there. It happened in New Hampshire, growing the numbers there. And you're seeing it happening in Florida. In South Carolina, excuse me. And I think it will continue on in Florida and Nevada on into the future.
Well, he's going to continue, obviously, in the race, collecting those delegates before the Republican convention in August. And last night he mentioned how his movement is growing. But, you know, critics say that he's never going to get the nomination or be elected. Will he then just be a spoiler?
Well, you know, and the thing of it is, I think when people talk about will Ron Paul get the nomination or not, missed the larger message. What Ron Paul is trying to do is, quite frankly, save the Republican Party by bringing it back to its roots, bringing it back to the notion of limited government, individual liberty, adherence to the Constitution. And this has been ongoing for a number of years. And what's really remarkable, and it doesn't matter where you look, whether it's Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, all over the country, you're seeing people starting to pay attention. I mean, Ron Paul's sort of like John the Baptist. He's out there, preaching the gospel, preaching truth, and slowly but surely people are listening and they're following him. And that's the large story for me yesterday. He's increasing his support in every single primary state. I think that continues throughout the country. And I think it's very important in the future of the Republican Party.
Well, what happens then in Florida and going forward as the vote potentially could then be split between the three candidates?
Well, I think that if you look at the Tea Party and if you look at its roots, it is all about adherence to the Constitution. It's about the federal government aggrandizing too much power unto itself. It's about disregarding individual liberties. It's about Keynesian economics. It's about printing money, the Fed printing money and devaluing our currency. And it's getting away from hard work, individual initiative, savings, and achievement. And what Dr. Paul is saying is there's no easy way out of this. We have to get back to fundamentals. We have to get back to where individuals are in charge of their own lives. Federal government can't solve this for us.
But then what does that, I know what he stands for, and the viewers do, but then what does that mean for the election? I mean, if the vote gets split, does Romney then get the nomination because the Tea Party support has been split among three candidates?
Well, I think that the Tea Party support, quite frankly, as people learn more about Dr. Paul's message and they reflect upon what the Tea Party movement means, they're going to gravitate to Dr. Paul, and you're going to see him rising up further and further in the polls. And whether or not he gets the nomination or not for the Republican Party, I think, of course, I endorsed him, and I'd like him to get the nomination. But more important is moving the Republican Party, closer to its foundation, moving it back to free market principles, moving it back to individual liberty. That's a tremendous service for the Republican Party that Dr. Paul is performing. And if you look at the things that the candidates are talking about now in terms of monetary policy, in terms of the Fed, in terms of government intervention in the market, Keynesian economics, and how they're turning our economy, those are Dr. Paul's themes. Those are things he was talking about 4 years ago, and now everybody's talking about them. He's performing a tremendous public service for the American people and for the Republican Party.
Well, he'll be in Florida tomorrow along with the other candidates, and we'll have that debate, and it will continue. State Senator Tom Davis, founder of the Tea Party, South Carolina.
Thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Appreciate it.
This is Hector Rivas with a breaking news report for March 8, 2012. Facing the threat of thermonuclear war, it is of significant importance that we received the news this morning that Representative Walter Jones from the 3rd District of North Carolina has introduced House Concurrent Resolution 107. The resolution puts the President of the United States on warning that were he to engage the United States in another illegal war, he will be committing an impeachable offense. The resolution states the following. Expressing the sense of Congress that the use of offensive military force by a president without prior and clear authorization of an act of Congress constitutes an impeachable high crime and misdemeanor under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution. Whereas the cornerstone of the Republic is honoring Congress' exclusive power to declare war under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the Constitution, now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives, the Senate concurring, that it is the sense of Congress that except in response to an actual or imminent attack against the territory of the United States, the use of offensive military force by a president without prior and clear authorization of an act of Congress violates Congress's exclusive power to declare war under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 11 of the Constitution, and therefore constitutes an impeachable high crime and misdemeanor under Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution. In response to this resolution, Lyndon LaRue said, "This is urgent, and everybody should go full steam ahead with gaining immediate co-sponsors to support this resolution." This comes from a member of Congress with military credentials, which is extremely important in this case, and stated further that this bill can save the United States from destruction. Every congressman must co-sponsor this resolution now. Congress will be leaving today from Capitol Hill to be in their districts for the next week. And on this website, you can find the text of this resolution in leaflet form along with the means to locate your congressperson and their contact information so you can participate in the mobilization to bring about the long overdue removal of President Barack Obama and save the United States.
Hello, it's Thursday, March 8th. I'm Diana Wong with your Primetime Report. Over the past weeks, Lyndon LaRouche and LaRouche PAC have continuously warned that a British-instigated global thermonuclear war is on a hair's trigger. And up to this point, humanity has really been living on borrowed time, bought for us by the efforts of Mr. LaRouche himself and a key circle of active and retired U.S. military officers, who, because of their positions and capacity to understand the gravity of the global crisis and the true consequences of thermonuclear war, has kept Obama, Israel's Netanyahu faction, and other British-run aggressors from igniting proxy wars in Iran and Syria. Yesterday morning, Senate Armed Services Committee hearing, attended by Joint Chiefs Chairman General Martin Dempsey and Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta, provides a very insightful glimpse into the fight that exists between those in D.C. who are aggressively pushing for a U.S. intervention into Syria on the one side, and General Dempsey and various military figures on the other, who have been insisting on a war avoidance policy. To note, the Senate hearing itself was attended by LaRouche PAC and was immediately preceded by a large leaflet distribution by EIR and LaRouche PAC organizers right outside of Congress in Washington, D.C., where over the past week, we have been getting out thousands of statements warning of World War III and demanding Obama's impeachment, which is a decision we must make if we are to keep enemy hands off our nation's nuclear arsenal. Meanwhile, inside the Senate Armed Services hearing on the situation in Syria, where General Dempsey and Secretary Panetta were called to testify, the majority of the senators in attendance were rabid and aggressive, trying to pin Dempsey and Panetta into a corner. Leading the pack were Senators McCain and Lieberman, who had just issued a joint statement this Tuesday saying that the United States, upon request by the Syrian National Council and the Free Syrian Army, should launch airstrikes into Syria on Bashar Assad's forces. And again, at the hearing, the pair insisted on U.S.-led military airstrikes and immediate military interventions, while, quote, the window is open. Other senators present, Ayotte, Blumenthal, Cornyn, Reid, and Brown, while cautious to endorse airstrikes, each recklessly ignored the broader global consequences of their words, each of them making the effort to condemn the situation in Syria, claiming to be outraged by the humanitarian crisis, and denouncing Russia and China. Now, whether or not these congressmen are aware of the much larger global threat of a strike on Iran is not known. But one thing remains certain: their actions are completely in line with the desires of British enemy forces to use American brawn to leverage a thermonuclear conflict with the nations of Russia and China. Whether they know it or not, they are fueling what will amount to a thermonuclear exchange between the United States and the Eurasian powers, which can only end in the total annihilation of human beings on this planet. However, for those typified by Dempsey, who because of their position as leading military figures, think in terms of global processes and truly understand the annihilation capability of a 21st century general war, they will resist the war drive to their full capabilities. Here, it is important to recall that General Dempsey had publicly expressed his anxiety over the Eurozone financial crisis months ago, saying that it is unclear whether the steps taken by the EU leaders would be enough to hold the Eurozone together. This being the existential breakdown crisis, which has caused forces in London to opt for thermonuclear war against the rising powers of Russia and China in the first place. So despite aggressive moves by the senators to push Dempsey and Panetta up against the wall, both officials calmly